Okay, hi guys. Welcome again to the platform across the world. And I am Hammad from Pakistan and my good friend from United States, Tim Jones. So today we are here to discuss about some history. As you know that Britishers have ruled over India and also in the United States. So today we will discuss some common things Britishers did in Pakistan and in United States, and we will discuss some positive and negative impacts of that rule and how our countries get rid of that rule and we made our independent countries. So here's my good friend Tim Jones, and today we will try to discuss some positive things, and we will conclude some positive things about that. Can you tell our viewers that what are we are going to do?
Yes, we're going to explore the common parallels between Pakistan and the United States as it relates to our origin story, how we both broke free from British rule, and what were the positives and the negatives from being ruled by the British, and why did both of our countries eventually break free and declare independence. But to start us off, Hammad has invited us to look at a short video. It's about 8 minutes long, and it's called The Story of India's Colonization, which of course directly involves Pakistan. So we're going to watch this right now.
Okay, let's go.
Did
let's
you know
watch the video.
that the largest diamond in the Queen's crown jewels was stolen from a 10-year-old Indian boy in the 19th century? Or that in 1700, India was worth a staggering $21 trillion by today's standards. The country was ruled by the Mughal Empire. Its economy was so large and so powerful that it was bigger than all of Western Europe's combined. 250 years later, India was one of the poorest countries in the world. So what went wrong? It all started with a single British ship docking in Surat in 1608. By the mid-20th century, an estimated $45 trillion had been stolen from India. It went on to conquer large parts of South Asia and commanded an army of 250,000 men. This is how it all began. By the 17th century, Spain and Portugal controlled a monopoly on goods from the east. But Britain wanted in so that they could trade in cotton, silk, spices and tea. Queen Elizabeth signed a royal charter allowing a group of Englishmen to sail to the East Indies on behalf of the Crown. And so the British East India Company was born. In 1613, the first British factory was set up in Surat. But the company wasn't your conventional business. They had a private army. By 1757, as the Mughal dynasty went into decline, the company waged war on the last Nawab of Bengal and his French allies. Indians weren't allowed into the civil service for most of the time the British ruled. When they finally were, they were often accused of cheating and barred from gentlemen's clubs. The justice system was also discriminatory. A British man who shot his Indian servant could get 6 months in jail and a fine. An Indian man who raped a British woman could get 20 years behind bars. And then there were the famines. Between 1770 and 1947, an estimated 35 million Indians died in 11 massive famines. The British didn't believe in governmental intervention in Indian famines. The Bengal Famine in 1943 was a direct result of failed policy. And let's talk about that independence. Britain decided they couldn't run India after World War II. Talks of the Brits leaving led to communal violence. Communal violence which was fueled by Britain's divide and rule strategy. Britain wanted to get out of India and fast. Sir Radcliffe, a British lawyer who had never been to India before, was tasked with carving up the map into a country for Hindus and one for Muslims in 36 days. But no one told the Indians where those lines were until the actual day of independence. This led to mass panic and chaos which fueled suspicion and fear. While an estimated 15 million people were uprooted in one of the greatest migrations in history, between 1 and 2 million of them died because of large-scale communal violence, starvation and disease. At least 75,000 were raped or abducted. Muslims trekked to East and West Pakistan, while Hindus and Sikhs went the other way. Britain left with hardly a shot fired, but their near 400-year presence there had brought a vast and rich empire and people to ruin.
Wow. So wow. All about the imperial rule of the Britishers in the India.
I had no idea. I knew a little of that, but most of that was new to me. I did not realize the degree of depravity and corruption and cruelty. My goodness, that's something. That's something. I mean, you can't even compare America's war for independence with Pakistan and India's. because I think one of the fundamental differences is England was a foreign power that came over and subjugated a different people, a different culture. They looked different, they spoke different, they had different religious views and values, and England imposed those values on India and Pakistan. In the case of the United States, the people who were the colonists in America all came from Britain. They were all the same race. They had the same general religious views. They had the same cultural background and history. So they too felt oppressed. Nothing like what your continent and what India and Pakistan experienced. But there was probably almost as many people in the colonies, the American colonies, who did not want independence as there were colonists who did. There were a lot of Americans who were very fearful of the colonists back in 1770s. We declared independence in 1776, but there were a lot of colonists who felt very loyal to the British Crown and felt it was a very bad idea to declare independence because then we'd be on our own. We wouldn't have the protection of the British army, the British monarch. We'd have to fend for ourselves. So it wasn't universally popular to declare independence. But ultimately, we felt that the king was doing somewhat the same thing that the British royalties had been doing to India. They were taking a lot of our money, a lot of our goods and products, and we weren't getting a lot back. There was a claim of no taxation without representation, which meant don't tax us without giving us a voice in governing ourselves. So we did have a war. There was a violent separation. The war lasted for several years, and I think it was in 1781, so about 4 years later, England and the King George, finally said, enough, I'm done. Okay, have your independence, and just kind of walked away. So not nearly the amount of cruelty, death, famine, all those things that we just saw in this video. It was much harsher in Pakistan and India than anything that the American colonists experienced.
Yes, and I think so. The different thing which I have observed that when the Britishers left India, they left it in a situation that India was divided into the three big states. One was Pakistan, one was India, and one was East Pakistan. I think so. When the Britishers left the United States, all the states were united. 50 states you have, and I think this is the most common difference which I think that was there. If we talk about some common things that I think so that the imperial rule of Britishers, they damaged the economies of both the countries.
Yes.
Either it was India or either it was United States. They never think about people. They only think about the money. They made some industries, but it was always in the favor of the British.
So I have a question.
Yes.
The average educated Pakistani today, how do they view? Clearly, there's only one way to view what happened, and that is with anger and just sheer abhorrence about how the people of India and Pakistan were treated. There's no way you can spin this to say anything other than it was horrible. But my question is, how does an average educated, informed Pakistani view the people of Great Britain today? Do they still view them with that same feeling of betrayal and hurt and kind of view them really with hostility? Or is that, well, that was that was the 1700s and the 1800s and the 1900s, and it's now the 21st century, so we view it differently? How do they view Great Britain and the people of Great Britain today?
When we celebrate our Independence Day, 14th August, then it always remind all the people that the sacrifices which our people gave when the country was divided, and it was only due to the injustice which prevailed in the British rule. So they are always remembered by the bad rulers. Not most of the Pakistanis think that they were good rulers. Majority think that they were the bad rulers, Britishers were, and they left this whole region in a state of chaos, you can say.
But do they look at I totally understand everything you just said, and that makes complete sense.
Yes.
Do they continue to view modern day Great Britain the same way? Or do they look at it and go, well, that was horrible, but that was the past.
Though about 70 years have passed, no, we think that we have to move forward, and we should just learn from our mistakes which we did in our history, because history is only to look over your mistakes and move forward. I think that some of the positive things that Britishers did here, it was some infrastructure development, like the network of railway, the biggest network of railway which they established here, and they introduced some new technologies and ideas here, because the Indian and Pakistani people, which were called subcontinent region, this region people were uneducated and they were very backward in education. So some of the technology and ideas were introduced by the Britishers, and most important thing, that English language was introduced by the Britishers here. A lot of Indian and Pakistanis can speak English and understand English. That it was because of the British rule. And the most bad thing which I think was that they made us dependent on the British. They never think of developing the area or developing it economically. They only ruled here, and we were the laborers, and they were the kings, you can say.
Right.
Yes.
Yes.
And also the one practice which they did was divide and rule. They divided the different sects and different religions here, and they never let them to unite. Even though the impacts are here, that India and Pakistan have very bad relations due to the old history. And it was, I think, so due to the Britishers, their divide and rule practice.
So you anticipated a question I wanted to ask.
Yes.
What do you think life would be like if in 1947, when England said, okay, you can have your independence, if they had not divided it into Pakistan, India, and what was then called East Pakistan, but left it as one country? Would that have been a good thing in your opinion, or would have that been a bad thing?
One thing I want to add into information, that the division of these states were not not a decision of Britishers. It was the decision of Muslims in this region. Because in the British rule, what they did, as I said, that they practiced divide and rule culture. What they did, they favored Hindus in some way. The Muslims were very much undermined in that rule. So Muslim decided that whenever the Britishers will left this country, then we will have our own country, and we will live with our own rules. So it was good for us that we got our own country where the Muslims can practice their on every sect and religion can practice independently about their culture and about their religion.
Is there any cultural connection between Pakistan and what used to be called East Pakistan? I'm guessing that East Pakistan was also Muslim dominated. Yes. If that's not true, correct me. But is there any connection between Bangladesh and Pakistan, or just separate histories?
They were also Muslims, and both the countries are Muslims. But in 1971, they separated themselves because geographically we were very much divided, because there was a big country between us, India. There were very political and governance problems were there in both the countries. So Bangladesh separated themselves in 1971.
I got you. Well, one other difference between your battle for independence and ours is, contrary to the relations between Pakistan and England, in our case, our closest ally, maybe our closest ally is Canada, but our second closest ally would absolutely be Great Britain. We fought in World War I with Great Britain on our side. We fought in World War II as an ally of Great Britain. It's because we have so much common cultural history that it wasn't very long before the enemy, England, became an ally of ours. I don't know exactly when our relations turned, but certainly by the time of the mid 1800s, England was no longer viewed as an adversary. They were viewed as an ally and a major trading partner. So again, different history. Interestingly, after the United States declared independence and we called ourselves the United States of America, each of those new states, to some extent, viewed themselves as their own country. You may be surprised to know, Hammad, that in the early years after 1776, when we were just starting as a country, each state had its own separate currency. Each state might charge tariffs for goods coming from a different state. They were not united, even though it said the United States of America. And here's an interesting thing. Before the American Civil War happened in 1860 to 1865, basically. Before the Civil War, someone talking about the United States of America would use the plural, meaning the United States of America are, because they view them as separate countries, mini countries. After the Civil War, if someone was using the term of our country, they would say the United States of America is singular. It really took the Civil War in the 1860s to finally bring our country into the view of we are one country. We are not a whole bunch of little mini states that all act independently. But that challenge of, are we one country? And is that where the power resides centrally? Or does the power reside in each of these individual states? That has been a source of conflict for our country through our entire history, even to today.
Yes, I have read about the United States that before there were only 13 states. After the British rule, there were only 13 states. And some states were saying that there should be a federal system where the federal should be given more powers and the states should be given less powers. And on the other hand, there were some states that were on the opinion that states should be given more power.
That tension, that conflict continues to this very day. But I would say, though, that the history that we've had, as tumultuous as our history has been, what your people went through for hundreds of years at the subjugation of the British rule was despicable, unconscionably horrible. And I think it was a real wake up for people like myself. I consider myself fairly educated, and there was a lot in that video that I had no idea just how badly the Indian and Pakistani people were treated. So that was a real, we say in English, in America, that was an eye opener, that video.
Today, the one thing which still left of the Britishers is our system. Today also, the same governing system which Britishers ruled here is ruled in Pakistan. Bureaucracy is same, and same pattern of hierarchy. You can say parliamentary system is here in Pakistan.
Interesting.
And there is debate now in Pakistan that should we switch to the presidential system, which can deliver more to the country, because 70 years have passed and the parliamentary system has not delivered to the expectations of the people.
Interesting.
And so though people are saying that we should follow the United States, like United States and France and some other countries, a presidential system, and they are doing good. And their systems are delivering to the people. So here is a very strong debate nowadays in Pakistan.
That's very interesting. Well, democracy is a very fragile form of government. One of our founding fathers in our country was a man named Benjamin Franklin. He never he was never a president or a vice president, but he's somebody that in the early American history was a very wise man. And when somebody asked him shortly, he was part of the people who created the Constitution of the United States back in 1787. And one of the people asked him, "What have you created? What kind of government have you created?" And Benjamin Franklin said, "A democracy, if you can maintain it." Meaning, we have a democracy as long as we protect it and don't let it fall into abuse. And what's happening right now in the United States is we now have proof that one president tried to stay in power, even though the vote of the people picked the other person. So our democracy right now, today in 2022, is under duress, under strain. I have no doubt we will survive this, but we are in a crisis for our democracy, because this is the first time ever that a president who lost an election did not peacefully step aside. It's never happened before. So There you go.
I think so. The United States also gave a very ideal system to the world when they formed. Made your constitution. You made judiciary system, legislative system, and the governing system separate, and they were all independent. Okay, and they cannot interfere in each other matters. That's why the Americans have ruled so many years. World order has ruled so many years in the whole world.
Yes, a lot of people don't realize that even though the United States is a relatively young country, we're much younger than any country in Europe. We're much younger than a lot of Asian countries. We are the oldest democracy on Earth. We are the oldest democracy on the planet, and some people are surprised to hear that. So, and of course, you know, your culture, your history is much older than our history in Pakistan. But your country, as Pakistan, is still relatively new, 1947. Yes. You know, so yes. Yeah, interesting. Well, this has been a fascinating discussion. I learned an awful lot. I don't know if our viewers did or not, but I certainly learned a lot. And I thank you for having this discussion today, Hammad. It's been very interesting.
It was very good discussion with you, Tim Jones. And I also, when I am researching the topics, I also get some new things. I also don't know those things. And I think so. It is a very happy session, I think so.
Oh, thank you very much. Well, I guess we'll wrap it up with that. All right. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.